Cool.
So you get more geekiness through your weakiness.
Is that trademarked yet? Welcome back to 4 Geeks by Geeks, a place where geeks can come to geek out. As always, I'm Bozer.
I'm PK.
And I'm Nick.
Hey! You might recognize Nick from our Power Rangers episode. Thanks for coming back, Nick.
Thank you for having me. I super appreciate it.
Yeah, we were so excited to have you on for all our episodes this week.
From this point forward, you can still catch the entire full hour length anywhere podcasts can be found, but we're going to start to spread it out. So instead of all coming out on Sunday, moving forward, you'll have an episode on Sunday, an episode on Wednesday, and an episode on Friday. Just so you have a little more content, it's a little more bite-sized for you.
Right, so you can listen to the full podcast in its entirety, but the YouTube videos, the viewers here, you're gonna get 3 videos a week, essentially.
Yes.
Cool.
So you get more geekiness through your weakiness.
Is that trademarked yet?
I think we should just let that one go. Let's never talk about it again.
So today what we're gonna talk about is, all together, with Endgame coming up, we wanted to take a moment to figure out why we love Marvel Cinematic Universe. What do you love about Marvel? What are they doing differently?
I think what I love, I have a very OCD mindset about things. So I think what I appreciate the most about Marvel and what they've created with their cinematic universe is just the cohesion and the cohesiveness, I guess I should say. Mm-hmm. Both from what is established as canon, what has happened at this point in the timeline, what's happening over here on the timeline, and the way that even with the events of Infinity War, they're still able to launch movies because they've established this timeline where you could be like, oh no, this is a couple months back, oh no, this is a few months into the future,
right?
That sort of thing. So I really appreciate how they've packaged everything in and created a nice cohesive timeline to kind of follow, especially if you're new to the film franchise.
It took me a long time to actually buy into the fact that the MCU is not comics. Right. It was up until Civil War. I was watching these movies, and Civil War was really important to me, as is the shirt, because it was one of the actual series that I read, and I've never gotten really into big comics. Hey, that's a nice shirt. Reading them all, but I did read Civil War, and so when I watched the movie, I wanted Civil War as was on the page, and it wasn't. And so for me, Civil War was like, oh, what are you? But until I realized, you know what? The MCU is different, and that's okay.
Yeah, it's the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Universe.
And what I think is nice about the cinematic side of it versus the comics is even though you've read the comics, you can come in and you have a fresh storyline. So you're like, oh, I know what they're going to do here. Civil War took a completely different turn on it. They were still similar, but with different twists.
Yeah, within the context of the overall universe, it made sense for the movies. It didn't make sense because I understand what you're saying. It didn't make sense from a comic book lover's perspective,
right?
Because there was just so much in that comic and so much more established over time.
Yeah.
But in the context of just there was 10 or 12 movies or whatever up until that point.
Yeah.
It was a natural kind of turn of events that is very believable within the universe itself.
Right. Plus, they didn't own all of the heroes, and could you imagine trying to pay hundreds of actors to come in and be like, hey, so you're going to get 2 minutes of screen time, but
here's $1 million.
Here's $1 million.
And that's what I got so excited about with Civil War. I was like, oh, Doctor Strange is coming in, the Wasp is coming in, the Skrulls are coming in, or, maybe not. I'm thinking of Secret Invasion now. I'm mixing
You're trying
them
to mix them all together.
Yeah.
But there's the whole, do you sign this, it was the superhero, give away your identity.
The registration.
Superhero
Act.
registration.
So they had the Superhero Registration Act, and it was like, do you sign it or do you not? And the cool part about that one was Spider-Man was the focal point.
And so that was before Spider-Man. So that, again, another reason I'm excited.
Right. So then Tom Holland was like, I'm here. Just kidding. Just kidding. But I was here for a few seconds.
I'm here to sell my next movie.
And he did really well. So I think that's what the Marvel Cinematic Universe does well. It never claims to be the comics. It just says, I promise you a really entertaining time with the heroes that you love and maybe heroes that you didn't know about, but now you can.
And do you know, when I was watching the David Tennant panel at C2E2, he made a really interesting point about Purple Man when he was Purple Man in Jessica Jones on Netflix. They said that while they obviously inspired the content from the comics, they never claimed to want to hold true to exactly the comics because he might, Purple Man might be drinking a cup of coffee, and then you'd have to go through and be like, actually in issue 75, he claims to hate coffee and actually like tea. And it became really limiting, like when they were thinking like that. So when David Tennant, when he explains anything, it makes perfect sense to me. So when he said that was a reason, I was like, oh, I will buy completely into it. MCU different? Sure, okay.
Absolutely wonderful. Sure.
Yeah, what works in the comics doesn't always translate very well to the screen.
Right. CGI can only take you so far before you're just like, so I'm watching an anime.
Yeah.
And you kind of look like some actors.
Well, and again, if we're using Civil War as the case, like I kind of mentioned earlier, like there's so many characters established at that point in the actual comic universe. The events that even start Civil War, they haven't even like looked at them in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So
right.
you can only do so much with what you have, and you got to keep it relevant, and you got to make sure it makes sense in the grand scheme of things.
And was it the Russo brothers? Like, I think that's what they do well is they've created this universe, but they haven't let it get so large that they can't control it.
Yeah, they can keep it contained within like a collection of 15 characters.
Yeah.
Which is impressive.
Yeah, it is. It's a feat.
Which, there's only so much you can keep in that fishbowl, which means you might have to start killing off fish. Catch out the episode on Friday. But with the 15 fish, just to keep with the analogy, you're going to have some flops. Or just ones that didn't quite make the mark. And, I think all of the movies were great. And, I don't know, maybe it's that they've set the bar here. And, I think in, the average movie bars here, there were some movies that kind of fell in between.
Yeah.
You're not wrong. Yeah.
There's definitely some that I think were a lot more memorable, both from, not even just a story standpoint, but, for example, the Marvel villains have often been kind of talked about in a negative light just with their development. So there's a few of these movies that have really good villains and good stories. A few of them have kind of just okay, they're here to kind of set up the next film or to set up a film 5 films down the road.
Right. You're here to set up a quick cameo in the Soul Stone realm.
Yeah. Thank God he was there for that, right? Oh, goodness.
It's why are you here?
Yeah, it was weird when he turned around, I was like, I wonder if there's going to be, and then I see Red Skull, and I was like, well, this
But it makes sense.
It does, but
okay,
it
but
felt
does
weird.
it?
That's where the Tesseract took him.
Yeah.
But why would the Tesseract take him to a world of the Soul Stone?
Do we want to talk about that now, or
No.
are we going to talk about that later?
We'll talk about
If you
that
want to know, check out on
later
Friday.
this week. So what movies didn't quite hit the mark for you in the MCU?
Who wants to start?
I'll leave
cool
you
either
to
way.
it, because there's
Please,
a couple.
as our
Okay.
beloved guest.
Okay,
Beloved.
beloved.
Yes.
Beloved, not after this. No, I'm just kidding. I think I'm kind of looking. We have a
We got
little
our list
secret
all around
list
here,
of,
yeah.
of films scattered about the table. I would say probably out of all the films, I feel like maybe Iron Man 3 probably
What?
was the least
far-reaching,
least of the films I like.
Sorry, did you hear your ground shake after
Yeah,
all
it's
the
just-
jaws just hit the floor?
I love Robert Downey Jr. Right?
I love
Robert Downey
Downey
Jr.
Jr.
And he was great in the film. The film itself was fun. It was flashy. Had a lot of whiz bang pow.
Yeah.
But from the story they were trying to tell or try to combine from the Mandarin's Tale,
Yes.
to trying to lightly introduce the Extremis program. I'm a big fan of Extremis, the Iron Man storyline. So
Yes.
the way that they tried to tile that in together just didn't really work and kind of fell flat. And I don't know. I just the thing that annoyed me the most about that film is the film ends with this realization by Robert Downey that he doesn't need the suit anymore. He's like, I don't need to be Iron Man. I love Pepper Potts.
Right.
I love everything. I'm a changed man. I met this cool little boy that's just like me, but a little boy.
And you just
I
wait,
beat the enemy.
5.
I blew up all of my suits.
What was it?
And then boom.
2 movies later.
And then
Civil
2
War.
movies later, he's back. He's back.
Lives
so
in the suit.
I always found that was I was like, man, if they end Iron Man here, his story, and they just bring Tony Stark back in a different capacity, that would be cool. That would be a
Right.
great story
Well, because
progression.
that could have been a really cool time to bring Rescue in.
Yeah, Rescue, you can bring in
And
someone.
in a way, it kind of did, didn't she? Didn't she get in a suit in Iron Man 3?
She did get in a suit and save him.
So that was
and
our
she
rescue.
got infected by Extremis, and she ended up
Right.
beating the crap out of the main guy, which was cool
Right. Super
moments,
cool.
cool flashy moments. But in the grand scheme of what they did in something like Iron Man 1, it just kind of just felt like very flat.
Right.
And again, it ended with this really strong characterization of Tony being like, I'm gonna remove the arc reactor. I'm not just Iron Man. I'm this guy. And then he's back without even a
It's
second.
like all the character development was just undone.
And they kind of reference that. Like we can talk about that later, but they kind of reference him and Pepper Potts having this like falling out, breaking up, getting back together later on in each film because he keeps coming back to the suit. And I like that idea of a hero being like, I thought I could be done. It's like an addiction, right? Like
Batman. He's like,
exactly. Like I thought I could be done with this,
And it
but
would
now
be,
I'm right
right?
back in.
Wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, if I was
If I had superhero powers, I would.
Well, we see that later in Civil War. Tony, that's pretty much one of the big films where he came back and was like, I ruined my relationship, but I just couldn't let my guilt about what I've created.
Yeah, I gotta say the glove scene from Civil War where like he puts the glove on it, like
cool.
grabs the gun and then, like pulls it back and gets shot.
And there was, I mean, in Iron Man 3, there were so many cool scenes. Like the end of the film is his suits flying around and him just like running and jumping from suit to suit. Like, that was a cool end scene. I'll give you that. Like I said, it was very flashy and fun. But just from like a character and story perspective, it like got really good and then it just kind of falls flat and then it's just gone. Like it's gone later on in the franchise.
I'm actually going to agree with you, where I think Iron Man 3 was the worst that fell, because I read the Extremis comic, and Tony Stark deals with this, like, alcoholism, and I think they, like, kind of swapped that out for PTSD.
He totally
which is
got
fine.
PTSD
Like, I get
over
where...
Again, in the greater scheme
Avengers
of the cinematic universe, it makes sense.
Yeah, so, like, they kind of touched on his alcoholism in Iron Man 2. They really let it go, and then in Iron Man 3, they were like, hey, actually, he's got PTSD really badly. Yeah. And they kind of like led to why he drinks, maybe. I didn't like the way they made the suit. I thought that was one thing that they could have, where instead of it being like implants in his skin, it's supposed to be nanotechnology that just like, and then
they kind of do that later, but not really.
Yeah, they kind of fix it in Infinity War.
Yeah, but then I wanted that nanotechnology suit, and then I wanted him to evolve Extremis so he could use it. Like. He was supposed to take it and make it something even better.
Oh, in the comics he does?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he actually uses Extremis to like create like a suit or like a layer of the suit that comes out of his like bones.
Oh, cool.
And layers him, and then the rest of it just kind of forms around him. And it's this very like organic but like technologically advanced.
So it's lightweight, he can move faster, he can move more organically, and he can really be himself.
The Extremis soldiers were like hyper advanced, like their movement, they whooped his butt, and then he had to develop something to like get on their level.
So he took that, and like the suit is literally morphed to his bones. So now his bone structure is actually more dense.
That's crazy. So what would be a flop for you?
Iron Man 3.
Iron Man 3.
That's what I'm saying. Like, hey, it's Iron Man 3. Iron Man 3 is trash. And like I said, it was still good. It was still fun, but like I tried to. Not only did they do that, they also ruined what I would say is probably one of the best Marvel villains. And underrated villains in the Mandarin by making some random British guy. And then they keyed up and they said, oh, the real Mandarin is angry with you for taking his name, and then we just lose him. Like, like he shows up. Absolutely one of the most underrated villains, and I think it'd be cool to have like an Asian
They
guy,
turn him into like a joke.
Yeah, well he's not. He's this like all powerful, like he's got like mystic powers, and it was just lost on me.
Yeah, that's a feel bad right there.
Yeah.
For me, and again, I think I've mentioned in past episodes that I really like these big events. Like, I'm all about an origin story, but you can only take so many origin stories.
The Incredible Hulk.
The Incredible Hulk. We had a typo when we were writing earlier. For me, one thing that didn't quite land was Ant-Man and the Wasp.
Oh, really?
I know that might be an unpopular opinion. Because when I think about Ant-Man and the Wasp, the thing I'm like, well, really, it's the post-credit scene that I needed.
I agree.
If you take that out, then that's a big deal, especially coming up into Endgame. So watch later this week on how I think that that's going to feed into Endgame.
Yeah.
But other than that, it felt more like, hey kids, here's a family-friendly
here's a good
movie.
Paul Rudd for you.
It felt very fillery within the
did.
grander storyline. If it wasn't for the end credits scene, it would have been very forgettable.
It was like the beach episode in any anime. It's like, why are you here? Oh, you just needed another movie.
It's fan service. It's a fan service.
But I will say, like, what I love most about that movie, I can agree with you to an extent. It wasn't my biggest like stinker, obviously, but I love the Wasp.
I do too.
And I do.
And she was great. Did you not like the Wasp?
No, I did. I like her. And I like her from Lost. Like, I'm a fan of... What's her name? I don't know. Can't remember her name.
Lady from Lost.
Lady from Lost.
Kate.
We love you. We love you, Kate from Lost.
But yeah, so I liked it. I agree. It's kind of like ultimately forgettable.
Yeah.
But I can definitely see without that end credit scene, it's kind of just like get it out of my face.
Okay, so 2 for Iron Man 3, 1 for Ant-Man and Wasp.
And an honorable mention for Thor: Dark World.
Oh, thank you so much. I was gonna say if someone didn't say something, I was gonna say
Someone
here's
needs
my
to talk
second.
about
Here's my
it.
second
Right.
stinker.
While Thor: Dark World was terrible, Iron Man was worse for me because
Thor at least had the cool like god mystical sci-fi thing.
The
behind it.
elf things.
and I liked the
Yeah.
I liked the Loki dying thing to come.
How
Just
many
because
times
That's
is
true.
Loki
It
gonna
set up
die?
Thor Ragnarok very
into
well.
Thor Ragnarok.
Set up
If
Thor
they didn't-
Ragnarok.
He didn't-
Ragnarok.
No, he dies in the end of Thor and Dark World. He's like, I didn't die for Dad, and
And they have this whole
Okay,
emotional
is that
he
like
like holds me
goodbye.
and he cries.
But then he at the end
He's
credit
alive
scene is him
again.
taking the form of Odin.
Odin?
And,
yeah,
and holding the
and
crown.
then he comes back in.
And it's a funny joke. They have the
Yeah.
Anyway, we
Yeah.
won't get caught up on.
We'll get to that eventually. But that would be my I loved Thor Ragnarok. It was my favorite Thor. We'll talk about that some other day. But anyway, so yeah, so 2 for Iron Man 3, 1 for Ant-Man and Wasp. Honorable mention for Thor: The Dark World. People are probably mad that it didn't make our top list.
Yeah.
Because I think everyone would probably agree that was probably the flop of all flops.
But I mean, it's got an Infinity Stone in it.
And it's got a cult
Ant-Man
following.
does
It's
not.
necessary.
Okay,
Necessary.
hang on. The quantum technology is very necessary.
We're gonna talk about that in the next.
So
later on the week.
stay tuned throughout the week so you can see that. But until next time, which is Wednesday now, I'm PK,
I'm Bozer.
And I'm Nick.
and we'll catch you in the next episode. Keep
Keep
geeking out.
geeking out.